I'm Dr. Garcia. I'm an internal medicine doctor.
Okay.
So, how are you doing today?
Okay.
So, this morning I spoke to you about the susceptibility that you're waiting for.
I'm sorry. Are you recording?
Yes,
There's no recording.
I'm recording.
Well, then we will have to get somebody also from the hospital.
Okay, do what you gotta do.
Is there any reason why you're recording?
Well, because I've been getting contradictions, so I can't prove it because it's my word. So I'm just going to record, so if there is a contradiction, I have it recorded.
Right. But then we'll have to get somebody from the hospital also.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you stop recording, I can explain to you.
All right. In this video, I want to talk about an update concerning the clip you just saw. And giving you a background to what you saw was about a week being in the hospital. My wife has stage 4 cancer, as you all know, and we're trying to go a naturalistic way. But she ended up getting pneumonia, so we had to go in and also get a thoracentesis to drain fluid. And, that's where we found out, it wasn't really so much the fluid was building up. She has pneumonia. So we had to get the pneumonia treated. So she got put into the hospital on Monday, this past week here. We're in November 6th, was that Monday? Something like that. Today's Saturday, and it's the 9th. So the 8th was Friday, 7th was Thursday, the 6th was Wednesday. Okay, so the 4th. She went in on the 4th. We went in there early, like 7:30 in the morning. And I want to tell you the big issue here, because they all act like they care, is we had an oncologist named Dr. Sarhill, and he said, he doesn't want us going to the ER, the emergency room, because more likely that my wife would get some kind of infection or illness of some sort, right? So he didn't want us to have to go through there. And it's like, okay, well, schedule us a thoracentesis so that we can go there like once a month to get fluid drained. Because we tried talking to a pulmonologist right when we were just learning that she had the cancer, and we just started seeing this Dr. Sarhill. But the pulmonologist, when we tried to set something up where we could get thoracentesis done by them, because the pulmonologist, if I'm saying it right, is a lung doctor, and that's what they'll do. They'll do that drainage. But the doctor was like, "Oh, your Sarhill's patient, we'll let him deal with that." So that seemed kind of odd, because it was like, "But you're the pulmonologist," and they were just kind of like, "Yeah, we don't know if it'll mess with cancer treatment or something like that." And it's like, okay, so we had to go to the oncologist there and try to have a routine schedule for thoracentesis. And when we tried doing that, guess what he says? He says, just go to the ER. And it's like, why can't you schedule them? Because you scheduled them in the past. Why do you only schedule it like once? And then when we asked, hey, we're probably going to need it because we seem to have to do it once a month. Why don't you do that? You're just like, we got to schedule it here, acting like it was a big burden. And it was like, it's your job. You're an oncologist. You're supposed to help. You're the one setting this up, because we tried to go to a pulmonologist to do it, and they said they wouldn't because of you. So that means you have to do it, because we can't. And for some reason, the pulmonologist, the lung doctor, won't do it either. No, just go to the ER, where you're going to have to deal with the infections. You see, when we actually get an appointment to do a thoracentesis, we can actually go to the doctor, and we check in, and within 30 minutes of the time we're supposed to be seen, so let's say we're supposed to be seen at 10 in the morning, at least by 10:30, generally we're seen, and things will start to get prepped. And she'll get the procedure done, which will take maybe 10-15 minutes, and then they'll check to make sure there's no issues. They'll do an X-ray to make sure the lung isn't collapsing and all this stuff, doing just all the precautionary stuff, and then we're able to leave. And the whole process takes maybe an hour, right? And we don't have to deal with much people at all. But when we go to the ER, you have to deal with all the sick people. So that's why we tried to go there early in the morning on a Monday, thinking, hey, we could go in, get this procedure done, and it should be quick and easy. Might take a little bit longer. But, we had to stay there in the ER for 24 hours before they gave us a room. Granted, they could be packed, but, she gets the cancer and, she can get sick. So we don't want to go to the ER, but we're going to keep her there in the ER for 24 hours because it wasn't until the next morning that they were, we got a room, and by lunch, I think before lunch, we finally get a room there. And before all that happens, they're telling us, she gets pneumonia. But then at times they're like, we don't know if she really does. We think she gets pneumonia. It's hard to tell. But it seems as though she does. But that's besides the point of stuff that was going on. Because they ended up, as soon as we got there, they were going to hook up to her portacath. Her portacath is a implant into the upper left of the chest that goes right into the heart vein so that you can actually do more of a stronger IV without damaging your weaker veins, such as through the arm or hand or something, right? So it's a strong vein there, an artery, I believe. And that portacath is like right under the skin where you put the certain setup that will act like basically like an IV, but in the chest. And you can also draw blood from it. And that's what they did. They drew blood from it. And then the next day when we're admitted, we end up seeing Sarhill, who we stopped seeing right in the elevator, which was, a little weird, kind of awkward, but he didn't want to really look at us, and we didn't really want to look at him. It's one of those awkward moments, like, right? And then when we get there, apparently the blood that they took was growing a bacteria. So there's an issue. It looks like she has some kind of actual blood infection, right? But they're not sure. They got to let it actually grow, and in like 3 days they're supposed to be able to say what it is and all this. But they were like, by Wednesday, they were like, okay, we know this is going on, so what we need to do is we need to draw blood from the portacath, and we need to draw blood from your arm so we can test it to see where the infection is coming from. And this is where I want to come over here to this paint app to demonstrate what was going on here. Because when they were drawing the blood, they said that her, I'm not sure what the actual term is they use it, but I think they were using hemoglobin, and we're going to use 7 as a baseline. So like 7.0 is the lowest you want that number to be, so you want it to be above 7, and as soon as you want it to be that or above, generally you don't want it there, you want it above that, but as soon as it drops below that, you need a blood transfusion, right? And they kept asking if anybody actually uses the portacath. And it was like, no, we don't use it at all, right? It was there as a preparation for a treatment in the future, right? But they kept asking that, and it was like, no. So when you say this infection is kind of strange. So they were saying, it could be a contaminant, but they say she needs a blood transfusion because she was low. She was low on what's going on here. But you see, the issue with having the portacath is before they draw the blood, they have to do a thing called a flush, where they flush in a saline solution, about 10 milligrams, or not milligrams, or might actually be 10 grams, a full syringe, the basic syringe they use there. And it's 10 something. Don't quote me on it. But they'll flush it in, and then they draw it back out to try to get, it's a mixture of blood and that saline solution to make sure they got all that solution out of there. So they take it out, and then they will then draw blood. But the issue is that when you flush it with the saline solution, sometimes when you draw the blood out with it, it drops this number artificially. Because one of the readings we got is that she had a 3.0, which would mean she couldn't even be conscious. And obviously she was fine and aware. So we already knew they were, faulty, but supposed to need a blood transfusion. And at first we were kind of like, oh, this is crazy. Like, why is it so low? Like, she has internal bleeding or something. Something's going on. It's not their error. There's something wrong, right? And so she had to get a liter of blood. At first they were saying 2 liters, even though the standard for where she was at was only needed 1, and they ended up just sticking with the 1. And, but they're worried about her getting infections, and it's dangerous for her to get infusions. But, quick to do that, and to do it, they did that while in the ER, keep in mind. Not when we actually got to the room. Before we even got to the ER, this was all done. So what I want to demonstrate here is what they ended up doing here. Is they drew the blood on Monday. So let's do Monday blood. And we'll do a little pool of blood here. And they wanted to test this, and it started growing a bacteria. So there's an infection in the blood. But they were like, it could also be like a skin contaminant, right? Later on, somebody said that it was a contaminant that's on skin, so it's probably what it is. But they were like, it's a blood infection, even though she wasn't having fevers, sweats, chills, dizziness. She didn't have any of the symptoms other than the symptoms because of the cancer in the lungs. Obvious was breathing. But she had none of the other symptoms that would be related to this. And her heart was sped up because we didn't bring in her medication because we were expecting to be there for part of the day, not a whole week. Right? So, a big issue there. So Monday, they did this, and then on Wednesday, let's not use the green here. Wednesday, what they said is, because of this infection, we need to take out 2 more. And that's the thing, they kept taking blood after they said her blood was low. They kept drawing blood. And then they were like, hey, we're also going to use it for teaching. There's a blood sample we're going to come out that the students are going to use to test for whooping cough and all this other stuff. And it was like, but you said her blood was low, and she needs a blood transfusion, but you want to take more blood out for these students to use. So you see the craziness going on right from the beginning. And so they took out a blood sample, again, from the portacath, and then they tested it to blood they took out from the arm. And this is where things get weird, because after they got this infection here, right starting there, let's do purple, I guess. This blue I think will contrast better. We'll do antibiotics. They already started her on antibiotics pretty much as soon as they saw that. So she was getting a quick flush of antibiotics into the portacath, and then an IV that would take about 2 hours for it to go through. So it was 2 different antibiotics. And this was basically done on Monday, where this kind of thing started. And then come Wednesday, they want to check the blood, and they want to see if anything's growing, because they said if it's growing, let's change the color here. This is from the portacath, this is from the arm, and they say, if it's from here and not from here, then the portacath is actually infected and needs to be removed. But if it's from both, then it's just the blood is infected, right? But they said, within a day they can see if something's growing, right? First day, nothing grew. Second day, nothing grew, but it takes 24 hours. They did this in the afternoon, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday afternoon. Here we are. They're finally telling us. Well, they weren't actually telling us. That video that you saw that I put in there was actually one where we're supposed to find stuff out, but you're going to see some weird stuff that's going on here. And the third day, there is nothing growing on this, right? And I was talking to the doctors, like, why do we still have to be here? I was saying that today, but I was even saying it before, like, okay, she, during, I believe it was Tuesday, she actually got the thoracentesis drainage. So we'll put a D here. She got the drainage of the fluid. Right, so we came to do what we needed to do. Only got half a liter. Usually she's able to get a liter, but there was a bit of an issue there, so it was only a liter. And so we did what we came to do, but because of this, we had to stay. And of course, we were like worried. Not like in fear, but it was like, oh, okay, an infection, we got to treat this, right? Especially thought we figured, oh, she does have pneumonia, right? And then it's like, oh, we got this blood infection, even though she doesn't have any of these symptoms. But yeah, this is something you're not just going to dismiss. But then they started contradicting themselves. And this is where I want to actually break some things down. That's why I drew this out here. So let's change, I guess, to the color black here. There was something growing here. And we ended up getting a new oncologist while we were there. And he was saying he thinks that it is actually a contaminant that isn't from her. She doesn't have this blood bacteria. It's a contaminant. She has no symptoms. She would be showing some kind of sign of it, but there wasn't any sign of it. All right? And he was like, this, this doesn't line up. And then later on, I think we first saw the person on Friday morning. I'll put it over here. We saw what's his job title there? Infectious diseases. This guy talked to my wife, tested her out and everything, and said, yeah, you seem fine. Other than obviously the lung issue. You're fine. You don't seem to have anything, especially since if you were infected on Monday, and if that's where you were infected, you should show signs of it by Friday, right? And he's the infectious disease guy. And he's like, yeah, so you should be out of here before you know it. Then we saw him again this morning, and he was just kind of like, yeah, you're fine. We'll just put a G for good to go, right? Good to go. Like, there's no reason why you should be here. He was saying the 2 times we talked to him, he said that this was a contaminant. He seemed like not worried about it at all. He didn't even say, hey, wait, no, stay here and get your IV and the medicine. He didn't even say, oh, wait for some kind of prescription. He just said, yeah, it was a contaminant. You should be fine. Right? And then during this time, even from Wednesday and Thursday, there was a pulmonologist who came in. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Saturday, we've seen him. But Wednesday and Thursday, we talked to them. And we'll put a P here. The pulmonologist was saying, yeah, this is probably a contaminant. We've seen this kind of thing before. And from Monday is when we first met with the new oncologist as well. We'll put on over here. And from the start, he was like, it's probably a contaminant, free from the start. And then the last time we talked to him was Thursday, Friday. So between here, we saw the oncologist again, and he was pretty certain that it was a contaminant, like it wasn't actually her blood, right? But he was also said, do their recommended antibacterial thing, but it's not something you need to be worried about, right? And he didn't say that he was worried about the portacath being infected. He didn't say anything about wanting to remove it. all the times we talked to him, seemed pretty confident that there's nothing to worry about. Didn't mention anything about the portacath, yet alone it being infected and needing to be taken out. But every time we talked to the nurses throughout this time, they would say, oh, the oncologist is worried that we would need to take out the portacath because it's infected. So what I noticed there is obviously what they were doing right there is fear, right? You got this infection, right? Not only just an infection, a blood infection. Right? That's supposed to be scary, right? But it's kind of hard to scare somebody when there's no symptoms, right? Like saying you've got a bullet hole in an artery and you're bleeding to death, you're going to die in the next few minutes. It's kind of hard to scare somebody to believe that when they can be like, well, I'm not shot, I have no pain, and where's all this blood, right? But, I'm the authority, I'm the doctor, so you need to listen and take what I have to say to heart, right? So we had this group of students and others that were called the yellow team. I guess I'll just put that in yellow, that makes sense, right? And they were the ones working with us, talking to us the most. Yellow team. And here's where a bunch of these contradictions come in. All right, so we got this bacteria that comes to us on Monday. And they say we have to check out both from the portacath and from the arm if there's any bacteria that's going to grow there. So I talked to one of the members from here, and I say, okay, well, it took a day for the bacteria to grow on the first batch. Like, you knew like that. All right, so we took this Wednesday, Thursday. What's the issue? If there's nothing growing, what's the big deal? And then she said, oh, because of the antibiotics, nothing might be growing because the antibiotics will kill it. So then it's like, okay, if the antibiotics killed it, why did you do this test? You're giving us antibiotics, but then you want to test to see if the portacath is infected. You want to test the arm to see if the blood is infected. And you're putting the antibiotic straight into that portacath, so it should clear it out, right? That makes sense. Antibiotic killing the bacteria, that's what it's supposed to do, right? So why would you test the area that you're actually injecting the antibacterial in, expecting to see a bacteria grow when the antibiotic would kill it? And then all of a sudden the story flips. Oh, but no, it would still grow even though she's taken the antibiotic. And it's like, okay, but you see, your little student yellow team here, they're telling us this one thing, and it seems like they're just, like I said, fear to get you to stay longer and just be their little science experiment and their teaching tool. Like I said from the beginning, things didn't make sense. Oh, your blood is low, but let's keep drawing all this blood. Like, within the first day, there was like 3 times they came to get several vials, like at times 7 vials of blood. But she's low on blood. It's like, that doesn't make sense. And why have the students get their own blood when she's low on blood? Right? It's like my wife even set up and said, hey, I didn't agree to this. And they said, well, this is actually a teaching school, so when you actually sign the fine print, when you register in, you agree to this, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, now you know that, right? Something you may want to know when you go into the ER, that you might be used for students without really wanting to be used for students. Even if you have stage 4 cancer and your blood is low, they'll take more out for them. Just a heads up. Could happen. Happened to us here. So I'd be talking to them saying, okay, there's no bacteria growing here. So what's the issue? Especially when the oncologist says it's in contaminant, the pulmonologist, contaminant, the infectious disease guy says contaminant. It's not actually from your blood. And they even said that the bacteria is a bacteria that's found often on the skin. And they did tests to see if it was coming from the heart. They did tests to see something with the lungs. They did tests to see if it was even from a teeth, some mouth sore. Even though she said she hasn't been taking the chemotherapy for about 5 months. And even when she took it, she didn't get any mouth sores. But they were like, yeah, we will just want to see if that's where the bacteria come from, right? So it seemed, like I said, all about just trying to scare, because when you scare somebody and you put them in that emotional state, they'll just accept anything you have to say. And when I was talking on that video, what I noticed is that guy didn't really want to talk to me. He was just dismissive of me when I talked to him off camera. But he wanted to talk to my wife and kept saying, it could be a contaminant. You know, these people are saying, you know, the other experts are saying, oh, it's a contaminant. But it could be something much worse. It could be. So how about you stay? Stay, right? Stay. And that's what I suppose I will get into here, is the end of that video that I shared at the beginning, where I said to him, hey, he's saying what he meant about he has to go get somebody. I didn't know if he meant like a police officer or what he meant. Like, because I'm videotaping, what, you're going to have me kicked out of here? What's the deal? What did you mean by that? And he meant that he had to get somebody from the hospital also videotape. And I was like, all right, do it. I don't care. I have nothing to hide. Like, asked as if I'm worried about being on camera. Right? I'm not. Right? Go ahead. Record it. Because while talking to him right after that, he said that, and then he said it's a hospital policy that you can't record. And I just was like, I'm going to record. And next thing you know, all of a sudden he's like, you can record, you know, because it's your freedom to record. But we'll have to get our own person to record. So I caught him in a contradiction right off the bat. It was like, you're against recording, but I'm still going to do it. Then all of a sudden, there's nothing you can do about it. So you see, he was lying and bullshitting, hoping that I wouldn't call his bluff. And I did, and come to find out he was full of shit. So right from the bat, I knew, okay, this is what we're going to be dealing with, right? And I was catching these people in contradictions the whole week, and I was getting real fed up with it. I was starting to realize that they're just trying to keep her here so that they can use her for the students. And that's just the simplest thing they could be doing, like the nicest thing they could be doing, because they can also be charging this insurance up the wazoo for what they're doing. And Sarhill apparently has a lot of pull in that hospital. That's why the pulmonologist didn't want to mess with us, because we were his patient. And apparently, you know, some people might be intimidated and fearful of him because of his actual sway that he has at that hospital, because only 3 oncologists from that area there, his office that's part of that hospital, have what they call privileges at that hospital, and he has more patients than the other 2 oncologists combined. So what he seems to be doing is creating perpetual patients, which is making the hospital money, so, you know, that would make him have some pull, and he probably was like, mess with these people. I can't prove it. I'm just saying that's what I believe. I can't prove it. I can be wrong. But that's what I believe. I believe he was very petty. He seemed very upset about us not wanting to do chemo. There's no reason for him to be upset. What's wrong with that? Why couldn't you help us deal with things how we want? We can try our way for 6 months or so to see if we get progress. If it doesn't work, we can do chemo. Right? But it's like, no. Like, he wouldn't listen. He's a robot. The guy is a smart guy, but he doesn't give a shit about you. And come to find out, there's reviews about him where people were saying the same things. And that's something I'm going to splice into this video as well. I'm going to look up those things and show them as well. that apparently this guy is shady. Where we read one review that said that unless he can pump you full of chemotherapy, he doesn't want to help you because that's where the money's at. When we first got the first dose of medication, it said that it cost $25,000 for 21 pills for 3 weeks, 1 pill a day. And it was like, wow, good thing we got insurance, right? So they're making pretty good money, right? Pretty good money. It's almost like 3,000 plus a pill. Not to mention they gave us tamoxifen, which is $1,000 a bottle. I don't remember how many pills in a bottle. I think around 30. It's like a month's supply, I guess. But we researched tamoxifen, and come to find out that it does actually prevent and hinder breast cancer. But then come to find out it's a carcinogen, because it may stop that cancer, but it actually increases your chance to have other cancers in, I think, 3 different organs. And I can't remember the 3 different organs. I think they had to do with the uterus, bladder, and maybe kidneys. But don't quote me on that. You can look that one up yourself. And I'm not sure how to spell tamoxifen either. So don't ask me there. I have to go look at the bottle for that. But, and this stuff also gives you a risk of blood clots. Right? So we were looking like, hey, this stuff we don't want to do. And while looking into this stuff, we were like, this isn't good, because even if we stayed with the Ibrans, the original thing we were given, even if it killed the cancer and didn't kill her, it weakens her. So if the cancer comes back, it comes back stronger. It takes over easier. So we're like, yeah, let's not do this, because we've heard that a lot of people who do this, yeah, they may survive, but then a couple years later it comes back. And sometimes what happens is it actually infects the brain, and basically, outside of a miracle of God, you're basically a goner, right? So we definitely didn't want that. So that's why we were deciding to go other ways, and we've been learning other things, which I mentioned in the previous video, other stuff we're doing, and we decided to stick to that. We were starting to think, hey, maybe we need to change, but it was kind of just buying into what they were saying. But as soon as they started bringing up these contradictions, then like, oh, if bacteria grows in the samples of blood we got, that means, there's an infection. But if there's no infection, it's because the antibiotics killed it. So there still could be an infection there, just the antibiotics is dealing with it. And as soon as you're done with the antibiotics, it can just magically jump back. Not magically, but, conveniently for them, jump back, right? More scare tactics. That's why they didn't want these things recorded, because then I could show you straight from the horse's mouth what they were doing. And these are the things that I kept bringing up to them, like, what was the point of doing a second blood test? I mean, you keep wanting to stick her with needles. Like, they stopped drawing blood from the portacath and started sticking her with more needles. They popped a vein in the right arm on the first day, on Monday there. So they were drawn from the other arm later on. And it's like, well, each time you stick her with a needle, you're giving a risk of infection to somebody who is prone to these things. And the longer she stays in the hospital, the easier it is for her to get some kind of infection. Like, she's more likely to get infected at the hospital than at home. Like, I don't know how many more times likely. Probably 1,000,000 times more likely, right? Because of everything that's at a hospital. And they kept saying things like, oh, we don't want to keep you here. But every time they say, oh, we're not trying to keep you here, we don't want to keep you here, next thing they would do is try to get you to stay longer, right? Like, you need to stay longer, you need to. And then I would ask them things about, like, okay, who can discharge us? Who can get us out? Right? And they were acting like it was a team effort, talking to this one lady. Come to find out it's not a team effort. There's one person who can just say, okay, I'm going to discharge you. And it's like, okay. More bullshit, more lies. Each time you lie, and I catch you in a contradiction, you ruin the trust. Right? You're showing that you're a snake. you're manipulative. I can't trust a thing you're saying. These other doctors that we talk to, like the oncologist, the pulmonologist, the infectious disease guy, and I believe there might have been one or two others that would come in, a heart doctor, and even a physical therapist that came in to make sure she wasn't at fall risk. Like, they were bringing in everything, I guess, just to charge the insurance, in my opinion. Just to waste time, just to make it seem as like, oh, you're staying here to do things, right? It's not just you're here for nothing. And, eventually it was fed up. They were trying to keep us, it was basically indefinite, where the lady told us that, oh, the treatment is 14 days. And then I asked her, it's 14 days on the IV, so she would have to be here for 14 days. And she said, no, it's like 5 days on the IV, and then there would be some kind of oral thing, right? And then, what was I going to say? Then when I talked to that guy on the video, who you didn't see on the video, but you heard him talking, he said, she needs to be 14 days on the IV. And I was like, well, then how are we going to leave? Because then I looked at the other lady, and she looked kind of like, uh-oh. And I was like, yeah, because you're the one that said, no, we didn't have to stay here for 14 days. Because none of them would give us a time length of, like, how long do you think we're going to be here? Just like, just open-ended. Like, whatever. They're not the ones stuck there, so none of them gave a shit, right? And then I started complaining to them about that kind of stuff, like, oh yeah, Sarhill, he could have been scheduled these thoracentesis, but he said that just go to the ER, even though he said going to the ER, you're more likely to get an infection. And then you guys doing all the stuff with the portacath unnecessarily, and we had nurses even at times handling it when supposedly she's got this infection without gloves, without using the alcohol wipes. It's almost as if either they're incompetent or they were intentionally trying to get her infected so that they could keep her there longer, scare her back onto the chemotherapy. And in my opinion, that's what I believe they were doing. And that's why as soon as she came in to just do the routine thoracentesis, all of a sudden, conveniently, the blood has a contaminant. And you think as soon as you, on Monday, right? Monday, as soon as you saw there was something growing, you would say, hey, we got to put an order in to see what this is and what is the treatment for it, right? But they gave us 2 antibiotics to treat this, not knowing what would actually work, if it would even work. So they gave us something that they said, oh yeah, it could end up killing it, and we did, the rest of the tests for no reason. But then they said that they didn't actually put the test in to see what it was and what to do until like Wednesday, Thursday. And then, they'll find out Sunday what it is and what the treatment is for it. And it's like, you know what? You took these other samples here on Wednesday, right? Today you can find out if there's something else growing. And they should have put the test in at the beginning to see what kills this thing, right? You think that's what they would do, especially when they said, oh, it's a common bacteria. Oh yeah, that's going off the screen, so sorry about that. We'll bring it over here. It is a common bacteria on skin, right? So you think, oh, yeah, these 2 normal antibiotics is going to take care of that. Why do you need special testing? You see, like, a lot of the things they were saying wasn't very consistent. But, they think you're stupid and you're never going to catch on to the fact that they're speaking with a forked tongue. They think they can just get away with that because, they're only able to think like that because they've been educated. They've been taught to critically think. Like, you can't naturally know how to do that or be taught that outside of school, outside of having some kind of doctorate or PhD of some kind, right? the egos are insane on a lot of people who are, educated. All it does is put them in a very dangerous position where they think they're smarter than everybody else. When smarts isn't knowledge, right? Smarts has to do with the ability to pay attention and to learn, to take information and use it practically. Wisdom, right? It's not just, oh, I know things. Okay, but can you actually apply them and use them? Can you teach others? Right? This is where the true intelligence comes from, right? Or what true intelligence is. And not just like knowing, like let's say you can know 2 plus 2 is 4, and 5 plus 5 is 10, right? You know the answer. So if somebody says 5 plus 5 is 10, well, yeah, you can know the answer. You can know the answer. Anybody asks you can tell them the answer. But you can memorize the answers, but you might not even know what 5 is. You don't know that 5 is like the 5 fingers on your left and right hands, right? That you got 5 on each. You might not know that that number is 5, right? But you know 5 plus 5 is 10 because you memorized it. You might not even know what 10 is, right? You don't have to actually know what those are and be able to use those numbers to remember that 5 plus 5 is 10. Like somebody can know when they're given change, 5 plus 5 is 10. Right? They can know that when they're working as a cashier, but that doesn't mean they know what coins actually equal 5. Which ones would equal 10. Right? Doesn't mean they know that. Or dollar bills. And the $2 bills and the 5s and the 10s. They don't know how to take that and actually practically take that knowledge of 5 plus 5 equals 10 and actually use it. So just because you know something doesn't really matter. It's about if you're actually able to use it. And I think I could ramble on about this for a while. Because even when we were getting ready, right, I was talking to them and it was catching them in this bullshit. Of course, that's why they didn't want a camera. Those are two things that you automatically know something's off. When they're like, hey, you're recording? Why didn't they want me to record? Ask yourself that. Why didn't they want me recording? What would they have to hide? Why would he lie and say they have a strict no recording policy? And then say, oh, we'll have to get our own recording guy, but then never actually get the recording guy. Why wouldn't he go get the recording guy? He was like, oh, it's going to take longer if we go get the recording guy. And I was like, so you want to keep us here at least another day? That's what I told him as soon as we put the camera down. It was like, what's the big deal if it's going to take time to get the guy to videotape for you guys? What does it matter? You want us to stay longer anyway, right? And I asked him straight up, are we going to be discharged today? And he wouldn't answer. And he's said something about recording. So I grabbed my phone. I made sure it was off. And then I was like, I'm going to sit on it. I'm going to put it under my ass. It's not recording. It takes you 2 seconds to tell me a yes or no question. Are we being discharged today? And then that's where he was like, oh, you can be discharged if you want to and this and that. And it was like, why couldn't you say that on camera? What were they hiding? And then after that, we basically didn't see that group again. My wife said, hey, want to talk to my husband for a little bit? We talked and was like, yeah, I think I don't trust them. People who are genuine and honest and care don't need to lie, and they don't need to hide from a camera. Right? And I think they're just trying to scare you into staying. But I also said, if you're worried about it and you want to stay, we can do it. But I think they're full of shit, and she seemed to have the same impression. I was like, yeah, we're going to go. So when they came and checked, he kind of had to look like, looking at her like, oh, you decided? And she's like, we decided that we're going to go. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he was like, is there anything else can help you with or whatever? It's just like, no, just getting us out of here, right? So he went and put the order in. But before that, like when I was talking to him, he would just straight up lie, like right to my face. Like he was gaslighting, right? And when I said I caught somebody else, one of his like students, because he was supposed to be there with the students on for Yellow Team. He was like the head guy teaching them, and I would catch them in a lie. He would jump in and twist the story to make it sound like it wasn't a lie, right? Like, oh, you got to be on this for 14 days. Oh, but you don't have to take the IV for 14 days here. You can do it at home, right? It was like, yeah, but that's still not what she said. She didn't say you had to be on the IV for the 14 days. It was just for 5 and then switch to normal, right? But then you can't find any of this stuff out until, what, tomorrow, conveniently. It's always tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes, right? You'll be able to leave tomorrow. Oh, but it's never today. It's always tomorrow that you could leave. And yeah, I know how that game works, right? So, yeah, we've just got a whole lot of BS from these guys. And one of the things he said that I thought was interesting was, oh, so if they prescribe her with an antibiotic when we leave, are you okay with that? And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I be? Like the way that they were acting was as if I'm some kind of threat. I'm the enemy, and they're trying to protect her from me. And we're trying to divide her from me by making it sound as like I didn't want to use Western medicine and I'm against antibiotics or something. Just the way that they were trying to word things was making me like trying to create a straw man of nothing what I was saying or actually doing. And thank God that my wife stayed strong, and she was like, no, I was offended from the very beginning where you said I was low on blood coming in here, and then you give blood to students. And I have stage 4 cancer. She barely could talk very long because of her breath. So while he was looking at her, he put his head down. And I was like, yeah, I know, time is very short and everything. He was like, okay, so you do have a conscience. When I'm talking to you, you want to fight me for some reason. So luckily my wife stepped in, and it's like, yeah, I'm speaking for her, because not only am I a husband, but she's not able to talk. It's not as if I'm going against her will, that I'm the one that wants to leave. No, we've been talking about it the whole week and thinking, yes, something is up. We even had one of our nieces visited, and without me saying it, she said, yeah, I think Sarhill, I was looking at reviews. She's the one that told us to look at reviews about him. I was like, yeah, he probably did something so that, you'd be stuck here. Just, a narcissistic, petty move, right? And it was like, yeah, we were suspicious of it. I can't say that's what he did. I can't prove that's what he did. But I can believe it. And that's what I'm saying. I believe it. Because he's not a very kind, genuine, relatable, connecting kind of guy. He's just like, oh, you got cancer. You're going to die. Take the medicine. If you don't take it, you're going to die. Right? Just using this fear. But I guess he didn't realize, we're true born-again Christians. We got God with us. This isn't going to work. So, praise Jesus for that. All these things, God's just testing us, pruning us, perfecting us, showing the world our patience, getting us to stand up, and maybe he wanted us to do something like this to expose this guy and what he's been doing. So I'm going to cut this here. I think I've gone over everything. If not, I'll splice in some more things that were going on. One of them, I guess there's a couple other things I could say about what was going on, is that every night Like, they're worried about her, and her health, and she's sick. She would never get more than an hour or at most 2 hours before being interrupted during the night. Because I stayed there every night with her. And they'd come in, turn on the lights, and be like, we got to do this. So she would snap out of it. Her heart rate would go up. We had her Fitbit there, jumping up to like 135, because they want to do vitals for some stupid reason, or draw more blood that they don't actually need. And, then there's times when, they got to set up some things that she needs, like the IV and all that, for the antibiotics. But just constantly, someone coming in, and a lot of times it's every hour. So as soon as you start to fall asleep, you're woken back up because something else is going on. Not to mention the times you got to wake up just because you woke up or you have to use the bathroom or something. So it was just constant. And then that's another thing I brought up. It was like you're supposed to care for her health, but she's more in danger of getting some infection while she's here, and she's not going to heal when she can't sleep. Sleep is a big part of taking care of stress. And when you can't sleep, that cortisol goes up, which weakens your immune system and can cause you to get sick. They're doctors. They should know this. And when I brought that up, she was like, yeah, we can do a no disturb thing. And then we would still get disturbed. One time someone just came in just to check her oxygen level. Like, in the middle of the night, wake you up. Oh, we'll put this thing on your finger. Okay, you're good. Why? Why did you do that? She's already got this heart monitor thing. So if something was abnormal, it would alert you. Why disturb her? These people didn't give a shit. And this was at Valley Baptist, Harlingen, Texas. And Dr. Sarhill is an oncologist there at that hospital as part of the Texas Oncology Unit at that hospital. And quite frankly, I think he is a piece of shit. A heartless piece of shit. And I would say psychopathic because he seems to lack a conscience. He doesn't care about anybody. I think he's a very smart guy, and he thinks that the people in the valley are stupid. And then you mix that with fear so that you're not thinking clearly. He can manipulate a lot of people, and he's making a lot of money. And since we didn't go along with it, he wanted to do something about that. I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to get us to take out that podcast, so either we can't use it, or that she would get an infection from getting it taken out, or that we would have to then go do another procedure to put it back in later on. Like, he just wanted to cause chaos and frustration, flex his power that he has at the hospital. But all he was doing was revealing his spirit, his character. And I hope God works on his conscience, and I pray you pray that God works on his conscience. Give him in dreams, give him visions, give him a vision of being in the other person's shoes. Have him, spend a night in hell, something to wake him up to where his life is going to end. He's doing this to people, and he's going to have a good life with a lot of money in this world. He's going to retire and be able to do what he wants to do. And so won't his children, right? But one day he's going to die and face judgment. So, with that being said, yeah, I don't trust these people. I think there was people there that were genuine, that did care, that didn't want to help. But I think this yellow team that they had, I think Sarhill pushed for that, and they were interfering with everything else. Because if it wasn't for them, like even the RNs were saying, yeah, everything seems fine. What everybody's saying, it looks like a contaminant. we don't know why you're here, but for some reason this team wants to keep you here, right? So there's basically just this group of people, which is most of them were just students or first year, into their positions. And then when they came this morning, the one lady came in to talk to us. I chewed her out a little bit because I was like, "Hey, everybody told us Friday. Like, yeah, there's no reason why you shouldn't be going home tomorrow, which is today, right? You should be discharged. You had your 5 days of the IVs because that's what they were telling us. All you need was the 5 days, and then all of a sudden it's 14, right? When the day to get out comes, and in the morning when we said, "Hey, we'll be getting out today," because she was like, "Any questions?" She was like, "No, we're," and I was just kind of like, "Why not?" Because even if there's something, right? Let's say something grows. This was the last day to see if something grows. When I asked the guy, did something grow? He said no. Finally got the answer. Talking to them when we wanted to get out. Hey, did something grow? He wouldn't answer. After a bit, he was like, no. So if there's nothing growing after 3 days, there's nothing there. Oh, but it could be the antibiotics. Okay, the antibiotics take care of it then. Because I told him, hey, when this actually happens, they find out if something did grow 3 days later. I was like, I bet nothing's growing. I bet nothing is. We're just going to be here to stay just to make sure, though, for some stupid reason. There's always enough for us to be here. We could be gone. Something grows. You can go, oh, it is an infection of the blood. Oh, it is from the porticat. We can come back. We can have it removed. Or you finally find out what antibiotic you should use on this bacteria. You call us up and give us the prescription. There's no reason for us to be staying there, especially when she can't get the sleep. She can't actually get the rest. She needs to get out, get into the sun, the fresh air, to move around. She had a lot of trouble. I had to bring her out in a wheelchair because she was in bed for a week. Oh, but we don't want to keep you here, but we're going to fight tooth and nail to make sure you don't go. And we're going to bullshit and lie to you to keep you here. They're fork-tongued snakes. And if they don't repent, they don't get convicted and repent, and I hope they get what they deserve. Because there's no reason for them to treat anybody like that. We did nothing wrong to any of them. Just because, what I think, we told Sarhill we didn't want to do chemo. We wanted to do something else. Now we're what? Evil people? We deserve to go through what we went through this week? You be judges, right? Christians, we're supposed to judge the world. You tell me. Was that a fair punishment for us? Did we really wrong him? So that being said, I'm going to take a look at reviews and probably show them on here. So thanks for watching and take care. Alright, this here is Dr. Sarhill. I think this is a good picture to use because it shows a bit of the arrogance this guy has. That's a younger picture of him now. He is 57. We show here. And while looking this up, this came up. It says doctors can pay to hide negative reviews on websites like ratemds.com. Should we use them? Because when I went to look, I found a lot of 5-star reviews, right? And I thought that was strange. But maybe they all had better experiences with them than I have. But I wanted to show some of them here. Here, we get a 2-star review. This says, Dr. Sarhill, so far he was okay, not what I expected he was in a hurry. We gotta bear with the person's grammar and whatnot, so bear with me here. I do not like it when doctors are rushing to get out, or they will give you opinions and they expect answers immediately without explaining. The staff is horrible. Maybe a few are okay, but most of them make you feel unwelcome. When they talk to you, they do not make eye contact, and they can be super rude, so I will not go back. We experienced that when we said, hey, we'll get back to you on when we want to get that port catheter into the lung cavity installed. If we want to do that, and we'll get back to you. And the same day when we left, all of a sudden he was calling up hospice saying that's what we chose to do, and got hospice to call my wife's parents. Again showing that they were trying to be manipulative to try to get her to go along with what he had prescribed. And his office is not very comfortable. And I don't mean because of the building, but because of the people. The people are often very rude. The first time I went in there, I talked to one of the receptionists because Sarhill told me to go down and do so to set things up. And I was like, hello, I was told by Dr. Sarhill to come and talk to a Ruth Ann. And they were like, about, what or whatever. And they were just like rude. Like, we just found out my wife has stage 4 cancer. And they're just like, we don't give a shit. And he's like, he told me to come down here and talk to you guys. And come to find out, when you want to call their office, you got to go through I'm not sure what it's actually called, but you got to go through some automated system, then talk to somebody, leave a message, and then they give that to the office. You don't get a direct line to the office. You can't call directly to their office. The office only gets calls from another office that transfers calls to them. And you better hope you're able to pick up the call when they call you, because getting back to them, it's not going to be anytime soon. And they don't like it if you don't answer the call as soon as you get it. Right? I'm not going to lie, a lot of the reviews that you'll see says 5-star, but I'm going to look at some of these negative ones to see if I can relate. It says misdiagnosed cancer, won't provide a referral, won't return calls to patients or doctors to help me with my life-curing surgery. And it's like, yeah, exactly. We wanted to get scheduled orntheses because he could do that, but it was a tooth and nail to get him to do it, or call in the office to get it done. It's like, why is it such a fight? What's the problem? Why are you like this? It doesn't make any sense. Unless you just don't give a shit about people. Alright, there wasn't many reviews on this one. Here we got 2 more 1 stars here. It says 0 stars. This doctor is an arrogant jerk who puts his ego ahead of the needs of his patients. I completely agree. He misdiagnosed my dad's cancer type, tried to give chemo intravenously when he had no cancer in his blood stream, and refused to approve a referral, delaying the patient's life-curing surgery after he already verbally told us he would. The patient was preparing for weeks, only to have Sarhill say he would not provide the request from the insurance group last minute. He won't return calls. Shameful. Yes. Try to say he's busy. Okay, if he's busy, he shouldn't have so many patients and then be going into the hospital looking for more. Because the only reason why we ended up getting him as an oncologist is because when we were going in treating what we thought was a lung infection, come to find out is cancer, he was the one that came in and then charged us for his visit. And it was like, well, we're not paying you because you just barged in to our room, started talking to us for like 30 seconds, and then we're supposed to pay you a couple $100? No, not going to happen. You tell us beforehand that you're charging us. You come in and talk to us just expecting that you're going to get paid. Not going to happen. So maybe that was some of the issue going on at the beginning there, but it's like, no, that's not how it works. You tell people the price and get them agreed to pay for whatever service you think you're giving. You don't just, I just decided to come over and wash your car and fill it up and clean your gutters, mow your lawn, now pay me. And it's like, no. Or somebody knocks on your door and you talk to them and they're like, hey, I want to know if you want to do this certain program. And you're like, no, I'm good, thank you. All right, for 10 seconds of my time that you used, you got to pay me $500. And it's, no, you came knocking at my door, jackass. I'm not paying you because you came to me to talk to me. Matter of fact, talk to me for the time you talk to me. It's going to cost you $10,000. So you actually owe me. Right? You can take the 500 out of that 10,000 you owe me. They want to play games like that. And lawfully you can do that. You can bill people for taking your time if they want to play that game. You just make the price way higher than they put their price to put them in their place. But here, another 1-star says, terrible doctor. Totally misdiagnosed my dad. Said he had a chance at life, then 7 days later passed away of a much worse cancer. Stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer. Sarhill has a terrible bedside manner. He treated my dad as though he had an expiration date rather than a human being. His staff is unprofessional and lack kindness and empathy. Don't walk, rather run from this terrible man. It is true. Complete lack of empathy. That's what I was saying. He seems like a psychopath because he doesn't care about people. He cares about making money. And if you don't fall for his little scam there, then I guess he tries to do something about it in another way, as we experienced. But here, another 1-star here. This is kind of weird because this person said he had so much empathy. This 3-star over here. I was like, that's crazy that's your experience. Right? Very crazy. But anyway, this top one says, Dr. Sarhill is a terrible doctor. He runs unnecessary tests even when not needed. He does not take the time to explain the answer and answer questions. He is very arrogant and does not care/listen to a patient's concerns. He is a horrible doctor. I would definitely not recommend him to anyone. And I completely agree. Unless you just want to go to find out how he is, to see for yourself, maybe record it. Awesome. Maybe you get a good experience. I don't know. I'm just saying mine wasn't. And it seemed unnecessarily so. Like, why? The only reason why I think things like this happen is when it comes to myself, when these things happen, I know I'm a child of God. I'm not of this world. So this world is going to treat me like shit, and I just kind of expect it. Right? But when it's blatant like this, and it happens like right in front of everybody, and no one cares, you think that somebody would wake up and be like, wow, that person, there's something wrong with them. Like, they would sympathize with you. Like, somebody would be like, something's going to be done or something, right? Strange that, that hasn't happened that way. But anyway, that is that. My experience so far. Again, saying Sarhill is petty and that he had something to do with Yellow Team kind of taking over what should have been just a routine thesis and causing this whole big issue. That's speculation. I can't prove that's what he did. But I can believe that that's what he did, and I can say in a video like this that that's what I believe he did. Because I think he is a psychopath. And I think he is arrogant and petty like that. Where we wronged him in no way. We just didn't want to do chemo. And now all of a sudden we need to be attacked. This is what narcissists do. But if you don't go along with the narcissist and what they have assigned for you, you want to think for yourself like an equal human being, that you're equal to them, that you're not subject to them. And underneath them, they got to destroy you. And they destroy you in one of two ways. They destroy you in the eyes of everybody else to make you look like a POS. Or if there was other things that were going through my mind. That's why there's a long pause there. And we try to, what's that word? gossip, rumors, right? Make stuff up to get people to think of you a certain way. Then they try to gaslight you, which I was thinking was what was happening to us. They were contradicting and lying, and that's why they didn't want the camera on, because they didn't want to show that if I reacted in some negative way, that it wasn't because of them, that I just did it because I'm crazy, right? Because that's what narcissists like to do. They gaslight you, so when you react, they go, look at how he's reacting, even though the whole time they were basically spitting in your face, and all you did was tell them to stop very loudly, and now there's something wrong with you, right? For not putting up with their shit, because they're narcissistic psychopaths. So they destroy you by trying to get people to think of you a certain way. Then they just try to destroy you by gaslighting you to make you look bad. And then ultimately, if they're on the psychopathic range of narcissists, which I think he is, because he puts people through these chemotherapies that they don't need and pressures them and puts these fear tactics on them to try to get them to go into him. So he doesn't care about life. When they're on that psychopathic range of narcissism to destroy you, they'll go to that next step where they have to basically just kill you. Right? And he's in a position where he can make it look like he was trying to treat cancer. These other people, they're just trying to treat a blood infection that everybody was saying was a contaminant. The experts were saying contaminant. But the student body there, they were saying, no, it's a real thing. Just be sure. Let's do all these things. And that's another issue. Antibiotics aren't necessarily bad. I say that because of what I'm about to say. They can be bad if not used properly. Like if you just start taking antibiotics because you want a precaution, well then you're going to have an issue because your body's immune system is going to not waste its time because your body is efficient. So if you have antibiotics working in your system, your body's not going to produce its natural defenses because it has something else doing it for it, which is the antibiotics you're taking, which will weaken you so that if you ever stop taking it, you're prone to an infection because you don't have your natural immune system. Secondly, when you take antibiotics, they don't adapt. So if a bacteria comes and is destroyed by that antibiotic you're taking, it can mutate where it's not affected by that antibody anymore because you're using that antibiotic so much, it forces the bacteria to end up deforming and changing so that it survives. Usually that's a lot, all the time that's a loss of information. It's not a gain of information, just to make a key point there. So now you've got an infection that the antibiotics that you're taking won't kill, and then your immune system isn't actually active or active enough to do something about this new bacteria because it's kind of taking a back seat to the drugs you're taking. Right? So in that sense, if she doesn't need to be taking these antibiotics, it can be something that is actually weakening her immune system, not actually helping. So if there was never really an infection, there's an issue. Right? What they're actually doing with these antibiotics is harmful. Not saying that's what was going on, but with all these strange things going on, it makes me suspicious. I'm not going to just trust them. There's something up, right? Something definitely up that I'm not part of, and I'm not on the good end of, right? So, hopefully, these antibiotics do something with the pneumonia. What was strange is the pneumonia didn't seem to clear up, even after having the Thorntisa. Had 2 of them during the week. I think one on Tuesday, one on Friday. So yesterday. And the breathing was still a bit of an issue, still needed to be on oxygen. So we got oxygen ready for her so she could leave, because you can't leave without the oxygen if she needs it. So we got a portable oxygen tank. We have a thing set up at the house. You might be able to hear something weird in the background. That's what that is. It's for the oxygen there. And yeah. So her not doing the chemo, her natural immune system should not be out of whack. It may be a little bit because of the cancer. It has to deal with that, but it's not as out of whack as it would be if she was on something like chemotherapy. So, just to wrap up, very weird. Even if you just go to the beginning, why didn't they want me recording? If they needed to bring in another person to record on their end, why didn't they just do that? And then they could show they have nothing to hide. Right? Nothing at all. And what I don't like is I was getting the impression that they didn't want me there. They wanted to isolate my wife. They didn't want me there. And that made me even more suspicious. Because they, an example. My wife was being, like, we have a wheelchair for her. It's our wheelchair. We bought it just in case she had trouble breathing. I could put her in the wheelchair, take care of her that way. And I had her in the wheelchair. We were going to leave. And the guy wanted to take the wheelchair and ride it down. And then when we got to the edge of the building, he was like, "Oh, yeah, I'll wait here with her, and you can go get the car, sir." And I was just like, "No, I can't drive." And the look in his eyes was kind of like, "Oh." And then I was realizing, wait a second. You think that I'm manipulating my wife and I'm forcing her to do this, and you want me to walk away so you can talk to her because you think I'm some kind of controlling, abusive husband. And that kind of thought hit me when the look that he had in his eyes, kind of like he had a look like, "Oh, you know what I'm doing." Because I just stared him right in the eyes when I told him that. And he just had a look like, "Oh." And then he was like, "Okay, you want to take her?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do not mind, pushing my own wife." And, after digesting that, I'd be like, "Hey, you know what? That's why when I was talking to this guy, the guy in the beginning video who was saying to shut off the camera, he would talk to my wife. And when he talked to my wife, he wasn't talking to her the same way he was talking to me. He was saying, "Oh, this could be a big issue, right? It could be real. And just one more day." Like when he came back to say, "Hey, what was your decision? We'll find out the results tomorrow." Right? And she was like, "Yeah, it's always tomorrow." Right? It's never today. The reason why I point out, like, yeah, at times you think you would want to separate a wife from an abusive husband, right? I get that. It makes sense. But there's no reason to think I'm abusive to her, for starters. There's no reason to think that. And I would ask her right now, because she's awake, if I beat her. But I don't know if you could hear her if she said yes or no. And you might think that I'm raising my fist at her. Just tell her no. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, see, there we go. Hopefully you heard that. But anyway, but why I bring it up is because that's what Satan did with Adam and Eve. He separated Eve from Adam, and then he manipulated her. He didn't do it while Adam was around. He didn't try to deceive Adam. He didn't try to deceive Eve when Adam was there. He tried to get Eve away from Adam. And I was starting to realize that that's what they wanted to do. And it kind of, that proverbial spider sense was going off. And, we had to just get out of there. And I just thank God that without too much talking about it, she was on the same page like that with me. So, with all that said, your prayers are needed. Please be praying for us, especially for my wife, that she gets better, stay strong, and that I can stay there and be her little guard dog there. And if you want to donate to help, there should be a link in the description there. Thanks for all the people who have supported. And I didn't mention anything about donations until the very end because I didn't want to make the video about getting donations. And I figured, the people who would donate, they would watch to the end. And you would be like, you know what, I'm going to help. Or not, whatever. So you made it this far. And you feel like helping, that's how you can help. Mainly with your prayers. But, I'm not going to lie and say money doesn't help at all. But at least pray for us. At least do a lot of praying. Not just for us, but for everybody. But just keep us in those prayers. Thanks for watching. Take care.